Buckbeak's execution.
Oh, yeah.
You've given us a stack of sources, excerpts from the chapter,
Okay.
a study guide, even a Buckbeak-specific FAQ.
Wow.
And it's clear this part of Prisoner of Azkaban really resonated with you.
It did.
So let's deep dive into why this chapter hits so hard.
All right.
And answer those burning questions you have from your study materials.
Sure.
Okay, let's unpack this.
What's fascinating here is that this chapter, titled Professor Trelawney's Prediction, is so much more than just Buckbeak's story. It's interwoven with exam stress, prophecies, and hints of bigger things to come in the series.
First things first.
Okay.
The study guide asks, why is Buckbeak even facing execution?
Right.
It's been a while since I've read the book.
Sure.
And the details are a bit fuzzy.
Right. So it all stems from Draco Malfoy's injury. During Hagrid's Care of Magical Creatures class. Remember, Buckbeak, being a proud hippogriff, reacted defensively when Draco didn't follow Hagrid's instructions. Now, a scratch isn't usually a death sentence. But Lucius Malfoy, Draco's father, used his influence to escalate the situation.
Lucius Malfoy, always pulling strings.
Yeah.
But the study guide also asks, what role does the Committee for the Disposal of Dangerous Creatures play in all of this?
The committee is essentially the judicial body in this case.
Okay.
Lucius Malfoy leverages his power to sway their judgment, pushing for a harsher sentence than what Buckbeak's actions might typically warrant. They likely feared Malfoy's influence and ultimately sided with him, despite Hagrid's appeals and evidence to the contrary.
That's where the emotional weight comes in. The chapter really captures how helpless Harry, Ron, and Hermione feel. Despite rallying around Hagrid, it asks, how do Harry, Ron, and Hermione try to help Hagrid?
They try everything they can think of.
Okay.
They help Hagrid research legal precedents for the appeal, offer him emotional support, and simply try to be there for him. It really highlights their loyalty and compassion. However, they are just teenagers up against the Ministry of Magic. A classic David and Goliath scenario, as your study guide points out.
And to add to the pressure cooker. All of this unfolds during exam week.
Oh, right.
The study guide even asks, how does the timing of Buckbeak's execution impact the characters?
The timing is no coincidence. It intensifies the tension and creates this sense of inescapable doom. Imagine trying to focus on transfiguration or charms when your friend's beloved creature is facing execution.
Speaking of exams, there's a question about specific exams mentioned in the chapter.
All right.
The transfiguration test, where they had to turn a teapot into a tortoise.
Yes, the transfiguration exam.
Right.
It's a reminder of the normalcy of school life.
Yeah.
Juxtaposed against the extraordinary circumstances they're facing.
And what about the defense against the dark arts exam?
Right.
The study guide specifically points to the significance of the boggart.
The defense against the dark arts exam is quite interesting.
Yeah.
It's an outdoor obstacle course where Harry encounters a boggart.
Right.
Now remember, a boggart takes the shape of your deepest fear. For Harry, it transforms into a Dementor. Foreshadowing the significant threat they will pose later in the series.
And Hermione. Hers transforms into Professor McGonagall telling her she failed everything.
Exactly. It's a seemingly small detail, but it reveals a lot about Hermione's character, particularly her fear of failure and her drive for perfection. This ties into the question your study guide asks. What do the boggarts reveal about Harry and Hermione?
Then right in the middle of all this exam stress, Fudge and the committee, including McNair the executioner, arrive at Hogwarts.
Oh, wow.
Talk about a chilling entrance.
The arrival of the executioner with his axe on full display is a stark visual reminder of the impending boom. It contrasts sharply with the joyous atmosphere of the Quidditch victory earlier in the book, which your study guide also asks about.
Ron, always the emotional one.
Oh, yeah.
Nearly blows their cover with an outburst.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for Hermione's quick thinking.
Ron's outburst is a testament to his loyalty and his deep care for Hagrid and Buckbeak.
Right.
It also contrasts with Hermione's more strategic approach, as she manages to silence him before they're discovered.
Then we get to the divination exam.
Right.
And I have to ask, like your study guide, is Professor Trelawney the real deal?
Ooh.
Or just playing a role?
That's the million-galleon question, isn't it?
Right.
Trelawney remains an enigma. On one hand, her predictions are often vague and open to interpretation.
Right.
On the other hand, she does deliver some startlingly accurate prophecies, particularly when in a trance-like state.
Like the one she gives during Harry's exam.
Right.
About the Dark Lord servant breaking free.
Oh, yeah.
And returning to him.
Uh-huh.
Talk about foreshadowing. Your study guide asks about this too.
Yeah.
How does this prophecy add to the overall mood of the chapter?
The prophecy casts a dark shadow over the chapter, adding to the overall sense of dread and foreboding. It's a reminder that there are forces at play beyond their immediate worries about Buckbeak.
Right.
Hinting at the larger conflict that looms in the background.
And right after that intense prediction, Harry receives the devastating news.
Oh, yeah.
Buckbeak's appeal is denied.
Right.
The study guide questions touch upon Hagrid's reaction to this news. What's particularly striking about it? Hagrid's note to the trio, written with a trembling hand, is heartbreaking.
Right.
It reveals his utter despair and the emotional toll this whole ordeal has taken on him.
Yeah.
He even instructs them not to visit, likely wanting to shield them from his pain.
But even with the execution looming, Harry, Ron, and Hermione defy Hagrid's wishes and go to see him. The study guide asks, why did they disobey Hagrid?
Their decision to visit Hagrid, despite his instructions, underscores their unwavering loyalty.
Yeah.
They recognize that he needs their support.
Yes. Now more than ever.
Right.
And refuse to let him face this alone. It's a powerful testament to their friendship.
And so we find them huddled in Hagrid's cabin.
Right.
The weight of the impending execution, heavy in the air.
Yeah.
It's such a poignant scene.
The imagery in this scene is incredibly powerful.
Right.
The spilled milk, the trembling hands.
Yeah.
These small details vividly portray Hagrid's emotional turmoil and the crushing weight of his grief.
Right.
It answers your question about the overall mood of the chapter, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's heavy with despair and a sense of helplessness.
Right.
What's interesting, though, is that the study guide brings up Dumbledore's support for Hagrid. What form does that support take? And what does it signify?
Dumbledore's support comes in the form of a letter read aloud by Hagrid. He assures Hagrid that he's done everything he could and reminds him of the importance of carrying on. While Dumbledore can't directly intervene and save Buckbeak, he offers emotional support and reminds Hagrid that he's not alone.
It's a reminder that even Dumbledore, with all his power and wisdom, has limits.
Yeah.
But his presence, even through a letter, is a source of comfort for Hagrid.
Precisely. It emphasizes the importance of human connection and support in times of adversity. It also speaks to Dumbledore's character. Compassionate, even-keeled, a steady presence amidst the storm.
But just as Hagrid finishes sharing Dumbledore's letter, the execution party arrives. And Harry, Ron, and Hermione are forced to flee.
Oh, wow.
It's such a tense moment.
The timing couldn't be more dramatic. It heightens the suspense and underlines the urgency of their situation. They barely escape under the invisibility cloak, with Hagrid desperately urging them not to listen.
The study guide asks, why does Hagrid want them to leave? What is he trying to protect them from?
Hagrid's plea reveals his deep concern for their well-being. He wants to shield them from the traumatic experience of witnessing Buckbeak's execution, both for their emotional sake and their physical safety.
But of course they can't help but hear it. The sound of the axe. There's a moment that chills you to the bone.
Oh, yeah.
There's a question about the impact of not witnessing the actual execution. Why do you think Rowling chose to handle it that way?
The execution happening off-screen is a powerful narrative choice. It allows the reader to imagine the horror, filling the silence with their own understanding of the loss. It also emphasizes the impact on Harry, Ron, and Hermione.
Yeah.
We experience their grief and disbelief as they process what has happened.
Then there's that art detail about Scabbers.
Oh, yeah.
The study guide has a few questions about his strange behavior throughout the chapter.
Yes, Scabbers, Ron's seemingly ordinary pet rat. We see him acting erratically, trying to escape, biting Ron as if sensing danger or perhaps something more sinister.
That brings up another study guide question.
Okay.
What could Scabbers' behavior foreshadow?
While it seems insignificant at first, knowing what we eventually learn about Scabbers' true identity, his behavior in this chapter takes on a whole new meaning. It's a clever bit of foreshadowing, hinting at the secrets he hides and the role he'll play in the story to come.
Okay, now the study guide moves to analyzing the chapter's themes. It asks, what is the symbolic significance of Buckbeak's execution? What does it represent beyond the loss of a creature?
Buckbeak's execution represents more than just the loss of a hippogriff. It symbolizes the injustice within the wizarding world, the abuse of power, and the dangers of prejudice and fear-mongering. It highlights how easily those in power can manipulate the system to suit their own ends, regardless of the truth.
It also touches on the theme of loss and grief. And how those experiences can shape our understanding of the world and ourselves.
Absolutely. We see this in how Harry, Ron, and Hermione process Buckbeak's death. It's a significant loss for them. One that underscores the harsh realities of the world they are growing into.
The study guide poses another interesting question. Why is the chapter titled Professor Trelawney's Prediction? When it seems to be more about Buckbeak.
The chapter's title is quite deliberate. While the immediate focus is on Buckbeak's execution, the prophecy Trelawney delivers casts a long shadow over the events. It connects Buckbeak's fate to the larger looming threat of the Dark Lord and the impending conflict.
So even though Buckbeak's story is seemingly self-contained, it's intrinsically linked to the overarching narrative of the series.
Exactly. It's a microcosm of the larger battle between good and evil that Harry will eventually face. Buckbeak's death serves as a grim reminder of the stakes involved and the sacrifices that may be demanded.
The study guide then moves on to analyzing specific characters. It asks, what does Hermione's willingness to break the rules? In this chapter, tell us about her character development.
Hermione's actions in this chapter are a departure from her usual adherence to rules. We see her hit Malfoy and later retrieve the invisibility cloak, even though she knows it could land her in trouble. This demonstrates a shift in her perspective. She's beginning to understand that a blind obedience isn't always the answer, particularly when faced with injustice.
It speaks to her growing sense of right and wrong and her willingness to stand up for what she believes in, even if it means defying authority.
She's evolving from a rule follower to a moral agent, recognizing that sometimes you have to bend or break the rules to do what's right.
The study guide then asks about the relationship between the main characters and Hagrid and Dumbledore. What do you think is the most important takeaway from their interactions in this chapter?
This chapter really showcases the strong bonds of friendship and loyalty. Harry, Ron, and Hermione demonstrate unwavering support for Hagrid. While Dumbledore offers a different but equally vital form of support, they are a chosen family, bound by shared experiences and a willingness to stand together in the face of adversity. This theme of unity and support becomes even more crucial as the series progresses.
Now, the study guide concludes with some broader reflection questions. It asks, what are the main themes explored in this chapter?
Several major themes are woven throughout this chapter. We see the impact of injustice and the abuse of power, the importance of loyalty and friendship, the devastating effects of grief and loss, and the courage it takes to fight for what's right, even when the odds are stacked against you.
The chapter also touches upon the theme of fear.
Okay.
And how different characters cope with it.
That's a good point.
Right.
We see Ron's fear manifest as anger and impulsiveness, while Hermione channels hers into action and problem solving.
Right.
Hagrid's fear is intertwined with guilt and a sense of responsibility for Buckbeak.
Right.
Each character grapples with fear in their own way, reflecting their individual personalities and coping mechanisms.
And lastly, the study guide asks, what does this chapter foreshadow about the series as a whole?
Buckbeak's execution foreshadows the growing darkness in the wizarding world. It hints at the escalating conflict between good and evil and the sacrifices that may be required to fight for what's right. The prophecy about the Dark Lord's return looms large.
Reminding us that this is just the beginning of a much larger battle.
It also foreshadows the increasing importance of unity and support among those who oppose the encroaching darkness. The bonds forged between Harry, Ron, Hermione, Hagrid, and Dumbledore in this chapter will be crucial in the trials to come.
And let's not forget the subtle foreshadowing surrounding Scabbers. His peculiar behavior hints at his true identity and the role he'll play in future events. This encourages a closer reading, urging us to pay attention to seemingly minor details that might hold greater significance.
This has been a deep dive into a chapter that is full of emotional depth and thematic resonance. It raises important questions about justice, power, loyalty, and the choices we make when confronted with difficult circumstances. It's a reminder that even in a magical world, real-world issues like injustice, prejudice, and the abuse of power exist. And it's a call to action, encouraging us to stand up for what we believe in, even when it's difficult.
But it's also a celebration of the enduring power of friendship, the solace of shared grief, and the strength we can draw from one another in the face of adversity. So we've tackled most of the study guide questions, but there's one more that I think is particularly interesting. How does Buckbeak's execution serve as a turning point in the series?
That's a great question. Buckbeak's execution isn't just a tragic event. It's a catalyst for change. It marks a shift in the narrative, propelling the story in a darker, more complex direction.
In what ways does it do that?
Firstly, it shatters any remaining innocence Harry might have held about the wizarding world. He's confronted with the harsh realities of injustice and the limitations of even Dumbledore's power.
It's like a loss of innocence. A realization that the world isn't always fair. And that even those in power can be corrupted.
Exactly. This experience hardens his resolve, preparing him for the more challenging battles ahead. Remember, this is just the third book in the series. There are much darker times to come.
This chapter also strengthens the bonds between Harry, Ron, and Hermione. They've faced a significant loss together, and it's drawn them closer.
Their shared grief and their united front against this injustice solidify their friendship. Forging a bond that will be essential as they face future threats.
So in a way, Buckbeak's execution, while tragic, also plants the seeds for resistance and rebellion against the growing darkness in the wizarding world.
Precisely. It awakens a sense of purpose in those who witnessed it, fueling their determination to fight for what's right, even when it seems impossible.
It also reinforces the idea that even in the face of immense power and seemingly insurmountable obstacles, individual actions can make a difference.
Think about Harry, Ron, and Hermione's efforts to help Hagrid. They couldn't ultimately save Buckbeak, but their actions demonstrate the importance of standing up for what's right, no matter the outcome.
It's a message that resonates throughout the series. That even small acts of defiance and courage can contribute to a larger movement for change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And let's not forget the ripple effect Buckbeak's execution has on other characters, like Hagrid. It deepens his distrust of authority and fuels his anger towards the ministry.
It's like a domino effect, setting events in motion that will have lasting consequences throughout the series.
Exactly. And remember, this deep dive has only scratched the surface of this complex and layered chapter. There's always more to uncover, more to analyze, and more to learn.
So, if you're feeling inspired to revisit the book, keep these questions in mind. As you delve back into the magical world of Harry Potter. You might be surprised at what you discover. On a second or even third read.
Happy reading!